Hello, Mother.
Hello, son. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just working on my Loki review. Which, did you watch it?
I actually just finished watching it,
And what did you think?
and I'm thoroughly confused as predicted.
So,
I thought Loki was dead.
so he did, um, but that wasn't this Loki. That was a different Loki. That was the original timeline Loki. This is now a Loki variant, which I could do my best to explain what I mean by that if you'd like.
Yeah?
All
Yeah,
right.
it could help. Anything
So,
could help. Please explain it.
Loki, brother of Thor and son of Odin, the more unhinged, psychologically damaged son of Odin and brother of Thor, because,
He's adopted.
he's actually the son of Laufey, the king of the Frost Giants. So, jealous of his father's approval and his brother's rise to stardom in Asgard, he takes over the throne of Asgard, only to be stopped by his brother Thor and supposedly dies by falling off the Rainbow Bridge. But instead takes over the brain of Dr. Eric Selvig, an astrophysicist, and uses his leverage on Earth to invade Earth and take the Tesseract, which is something that S.H.I.E.L.D. and Nick Fury were experimenting on, which inevitably turned out to be an Infinity Stone. So he uses a scepter given to him by Thanos to get the Tesseract for Thanos using Thanos' army, but fails because the Avengers put a stop to him. He's put in jail on Asgard for his crimes, at least until the Dark Elves show up and break him out and kill his mother Frigga. So he kind of teams up with Thor to put a stop to the Dark Elves, but then fakes his own death again and then banishes his father Odin to Earth so that he could take over Asgard again. And since Thor is so busy helping the Avengers fight Ultron and looking around the universe for the Infinity Stones, he doesn't realize this until much later. When he does find out, he pulls Loki from Asgard and takes him down to Earth to find their father Odin, who decides to die, I guess, leaving room for their estranged sister Hela to show up. And then you start to realize, is Thor the adopted one, actually? Nevertheless, she takes over Asgard and Loki has to team up with Thor, which is where we get that character arc moment where he's kind of a good guy now, even though he's still trying to cause mischief everywhere, which I guess is just how Loki has been his entire life. But they team up with Valkyrie to put a stop to Hela using Surtur and creating Ragnarok on Asgard, and then the Asgard people escape, and then Loki and Thor are on good terms, so it seems, until they are ambushed by Thanos' ship, and Loki dies by the hands of Thanos, which is kind of symbolic if you think about it, the new major villain killing the original villain for the Avengers. It's kind of Shakespearean and poetic. But jumping ahead, Thanos wipes out half of the universe, as we know, using the Infinity Gauntlet and the Infinity Stones that he collected. And then jumping ahead 5 years later, the Avengers travel back in time to create multiple split timelines where they gather the Infinity Stones to reassemble the Infinity Gauntlet. Most of these timelines are tidied up at the end when Steve Rogers travels back to return the stones and the hammer that he took from Asgard, except for two instances, one of which is what we saw with Loki taking the Tesseract away from its original path, and the other is another one that I don't know if they're going to touch on at some point, but there is now a timeline where Thanos' army doesn't exist anymore. Thus, his efforts to assemble the Infinity Gauntlet and wipe out half of life isn't fulfilled. So I wonder if they're going to go back to that. But, that being said, did any of that help?
Well, not really.
Great.
This will be your only warning.
Hello everyone, my name is Brandon, and while it doesn't seem like I'll be able to help my mom understand Loki, she doesn't really do well with time travel and multiverse stuff, maybe me talking about the first episode will help all of you watching understand what we can expect from this new journey in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. I put out videos like this for the last 2 Marvel shows, and I'll be doing it for the foreseeable future. So by hitting that notification bell, you can stay up to date with all of my weekly Loki reviews. And while some might view this series premiere as simply a recap for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I look at it as an egocentric maniac coming to terms with his insignificant place in the universe. Very similar to something we saw back in 2008. All the while introducing us to the likes of the TVA and setting up the rules that we will follow in the Multiverse of Madness. The important thing to remember is this Loki isn't the same Loki that we fell in love with over the years. He hasn't fully experienced the trauma that led Loki to be the somewhat lovable anti-hero. This Loki is still obsessed with world domination and control.
The world is a mess, and I just need to rule it.
Following his escape from the Avengers in 2012, he's apprehended by the TVA, or Marvel's Time Cops, whose foot soldiers are led by Hunter B-15, played by Wunmi Masako. I think I'm pronouncing her name right. But this just further solidifies that I wasn't the only one that watched Lovecraft Country, basically one big audition tape for Marvel's future roll call. But these TVA foot soldiers are carrying what looks to be lit-up batons, more than likely their version of the retroactive cannons from the comics. Retroactive cannons. Retcon, you get it. These weapons are used to retcon any individual from existence, basically just erasing them. It's not how I would want to go out, and not how Loki wants to go out either. But Loki's taken to the TVA headquarters, which is dressed in this like weird 70s aesthetic, probably trying to be like warm and welcoming, but has like a dark secret underneath the surface, in a place that exists outside time and space. Sort of reminds me of something to the likes of like the Adjustment Bureau starring Matt Damon. It's like cyberpunky, mechanical based, but also this like futuristic bureaucratic establishment. Pretty cool, actually.
Wow, it looks great.
As Loki's being processed here, he passes by what looks to be a variant Skrull, as well as one of the workers' cats, or might not be a cat, might be a flurkin. All I can say is if there's any more advice to take from Nick Fury, you might not want to pick up that cat.
Last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye. Oh, mother flurkin!
It's in the TVA we are introduced to our other characters, like Gugu Mbatha as Ravonna Renslayer, and Owen Wilson as Agent Mobius M. Mobius, which never thought that I needed Owen Wilson in the MCU until now.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, because that'll never get old.
Oh, come on. Oh.
We are also introduced to the TVA's mascot, Miss Minutes, played by, surprisingly, Tara Strong.
Awesome!
And it's Miss Minutes that explains the origins of the TVA and the origin of the sacred timeline, created by the three Timekeepers. In the comics, the Timekeepers were created by He Who Remains. At the end of time, the last remaining TVA agent creates the Timekeepers to bring balance to the timelines. The TVA acts as the time cops that kind of like oversee the multiple different timelines and put a stop to the ones that are too chaotic to exist. The difference here is the TVA is overseeing the one specific sacred timeline that was created following a multiversal war. Something that sounds very similar to the events of Secret Wars from 2015. Something that we might see again in the Multiverse of Madness. This animation even uses those specific words.
Whatever it was, stepping off your path created a Nexus event, which left unchecked could branch off into madness, leading to another multiversal war.
That's not necessarily a coincidence. We were all clamoring for WandaVision to be the introduction to the multiverse, with Evan Peters showing up as Quicksilver, but nah. With one of the main writers and producers of Rick and Morty, Michael Waldron, being the showrunner of Loki and one of the writers on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I don't think it's any less of an understatement to say we can expect some crazy and bonkers shenanigans to occur in this show, all setting the stages for the multiversal war we are to see this time next year.
You son of a bitch! I'm in!
Although part of me thinks this animation and the surrounding posters around the TVA headquarters is simply just propaganda to get them to keep doing their jobs, to keep them falling in line. Very similar to how Loki wanted people to fall in line and obey his every command. Even at the end of the animation, you can see at the bottom of the screen, produced by the Time Variance Authority Narrative Commission. All of this just might be the narrative that the TVA created to keep them in line. Because if their job is to put a stop to the branching timelines, and one of them being Loki picking up the Tesseract and escaping from the Avengers, isn't another one of those branched timelines the one where Thanos left 2014 to fight the Avengers in 2023? There now exists a timeline where Thanos or his army doesn't exist, and he doesn't go on his quest to achieve the Infinity Stones. If the Infinity War and Endgame battle was meant to happen in the sacred timeline, and there's a timeline where it didn't, shouldn't we check on that?
There's a sign at Ramsett Park that says do not drink the sprinkler water, so I made sun tea with it and now I have an infection. Sir? Sir, are you listening to me, sir? Sir, I'm talking to you! Sir,
Nevertheless, this series premiere is a much needed therapy session for Loki to come to terms with the realization that he isn't the benevolent god that he thought he was, but instead he's simply a bystanding alien just serving the greater purpose to the predetermined timeline. Even realizing that the Infinity Stones are inferior to the likes of the TVA. Even Loki and the rest of us coming to the harsh realization that the Infinity Stones are
meaningless.
Just saying. Saw a couple extra Mind Stones in that drawer. Why are you trying to hurt my kids?
Stop! Stop! He's already dead!
Mobius acting as Loki's therapist shows him what his life would have come to be if he didn't escape with the Tesseract, as well as the fact that Loki was D.B. Cooper? One of the most highly unexplained criminal hijackings in history. This man by the name of D.B. Cooper stole millions of dollars and jumped out of the plane, yet there was no evidence of his remains or the money he stole. Here it's painting that Loki was D.B. Cooper and simply was bifrosted out of there. Why do the Asgardians need American money? Who knows?
Whoa! This is worthless.
But this history lesson condenses the character arc that we saw over multiple movies so that we can get to the point of Loki being able to help the TVA put a stop to supposedly himself. But I'm willing to bet that Loki might not be the only villain of Loki. As we saw with the Ancient One in Avengers Endgame, if the Infinity Stones create what we experience as the flow of time, and one of those Infinity Stones is removed from the predetermined path, thus creating a branch in the timeline, are taking the Infinity Stones from their predetermined path what create the variance in the TVA.
We actually got a lot of those. Yeah, some of the guys use them as paperweights. Some of them.
Could it be possible that one of the ex-TVA agents took one of the Infinity Stones and went on his own unmonitored path? That ex-TVA agent maybe being Kang the Conqueror? Seeing as how the TVA and the Timekeepers are heavily involved with Immortus and Kang the Conqueror in the comics. Not to mention, like I said, with Marvel taking all of the Lovecraft Country stars, Jonathan Majors has been cast as Kang the Conqueror, set to appear in Ant-Man Quantumania. There's a chance we could see Kang appear, but I'm willing to bet that earlier in this episode actually gave us a hint at who the main villain of this show will be.
Tu sais qui a fait ça?
Oh shit, here we go again.
If you liked hearing me talk about Loki, please consider subscribing. I'll be putting out videos like this every single week, as well as other Marvel-related content and other stuff that I've got working on as well. Please be sure to hit that notification bell to stay up to date with any of the videos that I release on my channel. Please go follow me over on Twitter at @BMattWeiss. You can come yell at me about any of the things that I talk about on my channel, as well as follow me over on twitch.tv/BoxTheWise. I actually did get my computer fixed, upgraded some of the hardware, but it's still not to where I need it to be, so we're working on it. But in the meantime, you can go follow me across all of the platforms and be sure to share this with your friends and family, anybody that you think might enjoy it as much as you might have. As always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time. Mom, did that help at all?
Well, not really.
I tried.
I gave you 7 years of my life.
Thanks a lot. Bye.